I'm afraid. But I miss him dearly. He certainly was, one of those characters that you just, you admired.
When I go to Italy, it feels like almost immediately you have like a decrease in blood pressure.
Yes.
Like almost immediately.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the vibe of the people and the way they live is just relax.
They can be a bit stressed sometimes, though, with the shouting at each other and the
Yeah, but even then, it doesn't seem like shouting. Like American shouting leads to violence.
Yes, this is true.
I hear American shouting. I'm like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, agreed.
I hear Italian shouting. Like, what happened? Did someone in the kitchen fuck up? Like, what went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound pompous, but it does sound pompous. That if I have friends come over from the States or London, and I'll say, do you fancy getting some Italian tonight? And we'll get in the car and we'll be on the freeway or the motorway over there. And they'll be saying, where the F are we going? And I'm going, go for Italian. And there's a little town about an hour away from Monaco. Tiny little medieval town called, I won't give it away, actually. Can't give it away. Where I'll just go and get the best spaghetti vongole on the planet, made by a grandmother who's in a kitchen, 10 by 10 at the best of times, with all and it's down on the water, and it's just it's Italy for me. If you're not in the mountains, if you're by the sea, at its best. And they all get dressed up at sunset. They all love to walk the promenade, and in their finest attire, and sit there and watch the world go by and drink their coffee and chat. And because I lived in LA for I think it was about 8 years, and I went back. The story of me going back actually was that I flew back to London to see a premiere of a film called Backbeat. It's about the early Beatles. I didn't know anything about it, but I had an invite, so I went to see it. And I met this guy who said, who's a line producer, film producer, and he said, do you have you been to Monaco before? I said, no, I've never even thought about it really. And he said, do you like Grand Prix? I said, not really a kind of Grand Prix kind of guy. He said, well, listen, if you got nothing to do this weekend after, we saw the film and the premiere, why don't you come down? I've got an apartment. I've got an extra room. I know the town inside out, and I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Go back to LA and be numb again? And so I literally went down to Monaco the next day, and he just showed me around, and we went to this very famous restaurant and famous corner called the Rascasse Corner on the Grand Prix circuit. And it's literally where you're having a prawn cocktail and there's a car coming at you at about 180 miles an hour with just a chicken wire fence in front of your face. And you're going,
how far away?
Shit. I mean, directly in front of you. I mean, the car could be...
So this is it right here?
Yeah, that's not the Rascasse Corner. That's the Lowe's Corner. Rascasse Corner is very, very famous little spot. There it is. Yeah, that's it. So you'd be behind the chicken wire fence. This is a kind of modern version of it. But that's even more protection than it used to have. And you'd have a bit of lunch there, and that was the hot spot in Monaco for years and years. There were 3 brothers that owned it, real troublemakers. And it was a blast. But so you had the car. So I went, all right, I'm into this. And so I spent the summer down there. And I used to have a little bungalow on Mulholland and Coldwater. And I had a caretaker there because I had a dog at the time. And I just said, hi, Tim, pack it up, sell the house, I'm not coming back. And I didn't go back.
Did you take your dog?
The dog actually died before I sadly. It was getting on. But yes.
I said, fuck it. Moving to Monaco.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I just put everything in storage. I rented this kind of what could be seen as a Miami Vice kind of apartment on the 30th floor. It just had marble and a mirrored wall with no furniture, and so I bought a couch off of the floor of a store called Habitat because it would take like 6 weeks to order, and I had nothing, and so I bought a couch. I bought a TV, even though there was no English TV back then. This is 30 years ago. And I just had a trunk to put the TV on. And occasionally you get American movies. And a mattress on the floor, and I lived like that for 10 years. And just was really stupid.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, it was just stupid.
Did you enjoy it?
I had two. I've had two. Well, I've had 3 major. Well, no, 4. It's like the Spanish Inquisition. 4 major incidents. Now, I mean, London back in the day used to be a great place to party and enjoy. And then I moved to New York for a few years early in my career, in my early 20s. But I think I almost died there with the partying that went on in the clubs back in the heyday then, and it was celebrity central, with the likes of at the Limelight with Alice Cooper and a few other fruitcakes. And then I really did feel like I was, I could have I could have
Gone off the rails.
Yeah, easily. I was borderline. I enjoyed it too much. And then I went out to LA, and a friend of mine had a convertible, and we just drove across Mulholland down to Malibu, and I went, fuck, this is gorgeous. What the hell am I doing back? So I moved to LA. I packed up and moved. And I did exactly the same thing. I found a place to live, and I just, was there until I could get myself situated.
I think I met you in LA.
Are you
in
serious?
1993.
That's a good possibility. That would have been mid to end of my term out there.
I was doing something for MTV, and you were one of the first celebrities that I met. I met Rico Suave and a couple other people.
Shut the front door. Yes. Okay, yeah, because... Yeah, I was early in on the MTV stuff. The label I was with was pushing whatever, throw me on whatever was available.
I was with this woman who was an executive at MTV, and she was taking me around and showing me LA. I'd never been to LA before. And, I'd been once for a martial arts competition when I was young. Here was, and she took me to this nightclub, and you were at the front door about to get in. And I was like, holy shit,
do
that's
you remember
Jillian
which one it
Miller.
was?
No, I don't. I remember very little about it.
Was I with some fruitcakes? I'm sure I was.
I don't remember. I just remember like, oh, that's a famous guy. That's John Lennon's son. Crazy. Because, I was coming from New York. I was
of course.
25, 26 years old. I didn't know anything. And I was like, this is so strange. It was just strange to me to be in these like Hollywood parties with this MTV executive who's taking me around showing me all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
She was just kind of like introduce you like, this is what it's like.
Yeah.
This is what everybody does. They go out to the clubs and it was just...
Yeah. Yeah, the scary thing about LA was that you thought it was all over by 2 o'clock, because they literally pull your drinks at 1:30.
Mm-hmm.
But then they go to someone's house.
Right.
And they continue till dawn, So that was dangerous too.
Yeah.
So I was happy that I got away from that.
Fortunately, I avoided all that.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some fun to be had, no question about it. But
I'm sure
a lot of it was kind of dark too.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, that's when you start adding cocaine to human beings, you get darkness.
Oh yeah, and a lot of Jack Daniels too.
They go hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I avoided all that. Luckily, when I moved to LA, I'm one of those people that's like,
you were out
see
there.
where that's
how
going.
long were you out there for?
I guess 30. Well, no, not quite 30 years. 26 years because I've been here for 4.
That's a stretch. Okay.
Yeah, the most of my life, the most I've ever lived anywhere. I lived there. But I only went to parties like a handful, very small handful of times. It was like I was dragged to them.
Yeah.
Like the last one I was dragged to was Naomi Campbell's birthday party, which was
I'm sure that was...
it was insane.
Yeah.
It was with Dave Chappelle. So Dave and I were at the Comedy Store, and Dave knows everybody. And
Yes.
Dave's like, hey man, there's a party up in the hills. You want to go? And I was like, I don't want to go to any fucking parties.
Yeah.
He's like, come on, man, I want to go alone. So I said, okay. So me and Dave, we drove all the way up. It was like a scene in a movie.
Yeah.
Because like here's me and my super famous friend, and we're in my Porsche, and we're in my race car. I have a GT3. So we're driving up in the hills, and then we have to stop at this place, and then you have to get on a shuttle, and then you get to the house, and then you get on an elevator, an outside elevator that takes you from the main house to the party house.
Right.
So they had a party house on the top of this hill. So we're up in this elevator with Demi Moore, which is weird as it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, hi. It's fucking weird. Hi, famous lady.
Yeah.
And then we get to the top of this hill, and it's just everybody famous. It's Lenny Kravitz and all these different people.
Yeah.
And so Naomi Campbell, there's a photograph of her on the side of the hill that's literally 50 feet tall. This enormous naked photograph of her.
Of course.
Because it's her birthday.
Well, of course.
She's unbelievably beautiful still, as old as she is. I don't know how old she is, but she looks sensational. So we get to the top of this place. We're hanging out. It's very weird. And then Dave pulls me aside. He goes, man, I wouldn't want to be this famous. I go, hey, man. You're the most famous motherfucker here. He goes, really?
Oh, yeah.
Because we were a little high. He goes, really? I go, 100%. You're the most famous person
for
here.
Sure.
We were just laughing. Like, this is so crazy. And then we got out of there and went right back to the Comedy Store. I'm like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's just too strange.
The scenes are pretty weird out there, that's for sure.
Well, it's also these celebrities, they can't hang out with regular people, I think. They feel too weird. So I think they try to get together.
Yeah.
And so we were in like
absolutely, you're spot on.
A vampire den of famous people.
You are absolutely spot on.
They call it he said it was like an eyes wide shut party. I'm like, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're in a secret fraternity.
No, there's a few that I've left that I felt very uncomfortable being at.
Like what?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly where and when, but certainly some weird ones up in the hills. So I just went, this doesn't feel good.
There's something about the act of going up into the hills, like you're going to the lair, the dragon's lair.
Well, one of the things was the fact that, now you've got Ubers all over the place, but back in my day, there was no taxis around either, so you'd get trapped.
Ooh. And
then you'd figure, well, I'm here anyway.
Yeah, you can't.
Might as well have another drink, and that's what would happen more often than not. But so it's kind of better not to.
Definitely better not to, but maybe go a couple times.
Yeah, go and check it out. Yeah, go and see what that's all about. Yeah,
yeah. Many people have lost.
It's
their
messy
time.
though. Oh yeah.
They've lost their time to those places.
It's very messy.
It becomes a part of your life and your lifestyle. It's deeply unhealthy, both it's physically unhealthy, but it's also like spiritually unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to spend your time.
Been there, done that. Thank you very much.
You look fine. You got through it.
No, I did. I did get through it.
But don't you think it's good to just know, though?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not the way to do
No,
it.
I think if you don't know, you can't talk about it. You can't understand
Right.
that weird journey that you go through.
Yeah.
I think you have to do certain things sometimes just to realize what it's all about.
Well, LA
It's
is
that balance thing. It's the light and the dark,
LA is so particularly odd, too, because everyone's chasing this very specific goal of notoriety. Like, it's success, but success it's quantified by notoriety. Like, the more famous you are, the more popular, the bigger your song is.
Even now, all you've got to have is a bloody iPhone or whatever.
TikTok.
And an account, and that's
Yeah.
it. I mean,
Very strange.
yeah, really odd.
Yeah.
I can't quite get to grips with all of that, to be honest with you.
I don't think anybody can. And I think it's essentially being captured by a form of technology that has leveraged our desire for this attention, our desire for this notoriety.
But it's also being known for nothing.
Right.
Yeah, that's the scary thing.
Yes.
And having this element of what seems to be the latest generation of this privilege.
Right.
Right. Where they believe that, everything is owed to them.
Right.
And entitled, yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that shocking,
Well, that comes along with the quest, right? If the quest is just notoriety, like if you're an artist and you happen to get famous because everybody loves your music or loves your photography or loves your books or whatever it is, that's a different sort of a relationship because people love you for what you've made, what you've produced.
Yeah, there's a purpose to it.
Yeah, and I love people like that because I'm fascinated by people that are able to create things that resonate with everybody or resonate with an enormous amount of people. It's fascinating to be around them and to kind of just, I know a lot of famous people now and I know some of them are just fantastic people. They're just really interesting people.
Well, you have very interesting people on your show, that's for sure. I mean, that's what intrigued me, from Professor Brian Cox, who I'm an absolute fan of. I had the pleasure of meeting him.
Such a nice guy, too.
Lovely guy, mind-blowing. Just too much information for my good.
It's so funny. I was talking about him with a friend of mine the other day, and my friend wasn't aware of him, and I had just done a podcast with him, and so and I'd gone to the club from the podcast. I'm like, oh my god, I had the greatest podcast. This guy blew my mind. Yeah. I've had him on several times, and he's always amazing. And my friend looks at the photo. He goes, "What does he look like?" I pull up. He's like, "Is that guy in a fucking band or something?" I go, "Yeah, he was in a band."
That's right.
He's like, "No way."
Yeah,
He was in a successful band.
Yeah.
He's an actual brilliant scientist who was in a successful band.
Yeah. Mind-boggling. I mean, doesn't comprehend.
Because he looks like a rock star.
He does. He's not changed his look since the beginning.
And he's such a great science communicator.
Well, that's the thing. See, I love science, but I get lost in it sometimes. But he is probably the closest I'll ever get to really trying to have an insight into what it's all about, as best as he can describe it.
He's really good at explaining to people that don't have the proper understanding of all the terminology and all the ways they discover it. He can lay it out for the layperson.
Yeah. Which is why he's so fascinating, which is why everybody should know him.
Yeah. His show is wonderful, too. Have you ever seen his show? They do a live performance.
No, I have not.
Enormous screens, and they show you, like, history of the universe and stellar nurseries and all this wild stuff. It's really incredible stuff.
No, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in that way that I've had a chance to talk to so many extraordinary people. And it's great, but it makes talking to boring people almost painful. Like you're just holding your breath.
Well, I don't know which category I'm in.
You're not in the boring kind. No.
Well, I can be. I think we all can be, I guess, at some stage. But
well, just the fact that you're willing to do what you've done, just to take these trips and just move to a place, I think that's great. I think people need more of that in their life. I think you could see the world from your neighborhood and from where you live and get a really distorted sense of this experience, this very unique experience of these bizarre thinking creatures interacting with each other on this isolated planet that's hurling through the universe.
Yeah.
And you could think that you kind of understand the experience until you go to other places.
Well, I see you're a big fan of Bourdain as well.
Yeah.
And I loved his shows. So I still watch them all the time because it's just what he discovered and how he entrenched himself with the people that he went to meet and the conversations and the food are just that's my cup of tea right there. I think how can you not want to do that, learn and love that experience?
Well, he had such a infectious passion for different cultures and their food and the art of food. He was the first guy that made me consider that cooking is actually an art form. Like, I kind of knew it, but I didn't think of it. I kind of just said, oh, delicious food, awesome. Oh, this guy's a really great chef, awesome. Yeah. And then I watched his first show, No Reservations, oh, okay, duh, it's art. It's art that you eat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's why they're all weird and they all have tattoos and fucking weird earrings.
Yeah.
Okay, they're artists. Okay, that makes so much sense. And I was like, oh, you ignorant fuck. You had never put it in that category. I just decided, no, that's just food. But no, there's an art to food.
It's another level.
Yeah, like the place you were talking about, linguine with clams, linguine vongole, which is my favorite dish of all time.
Spaghetti vongole.
Oh, when it's done right.
I promise that if you ever come back to Monty, as we call it, I'll drive you.
Oh, I'll go.
We'll go for spaghetti vongole and hope the dear grandmother's still alive.
It also makes me angry because when I eat pasta and pizza over in Italy, I don't feel like shit. And then I come to America and I eat the same supposed things,
Listen,
and I feel
I can eat a friggin' salad here and put on weight. I don't know what's going on. I'm serious though.
Yeah, it's seed oils.
Absolutely.
Seed oils in the salad dressing, and sugar. And,
yep, all of that. All
Yeah.
of that. I agree. I live. It's a much healthier lifestyle over there, without question.
Oh yeah, the
Every
food
time
hasn't
I
been
visit.
violated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's generally organic.
You can eat pizza every day and pasta every day.
Yeah.
And also, that I think the other real big thing here is the portion control as well.
Yeah, we're gluttons.
I mean, you can have one plate full of food here and it'll serve 4 people in Europe.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh yeah, that's a fact. I think I was poor when I was young, and I think because of that, I'm even more of a glutton because I just want more food. I
Right.
want all the food.
Yeah.
And then I work out a lot, so I'm always hungry.
Yeah.
So then I have a real
That's a different thing,
overeating.
though,
But
you know.
yeah, I mean, the only thing that keeps me from being fat is my exercise routine and discipline. Because
Yeah.
if I was just giving into my whims, I'd be 500 pounds.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
a
for
fucking
sure.
whale. I
Yeah.
just love food.
Yeah.
It's especially when
Food
you go to
is
a different
fab.
culture.
No, of course.
You know. If you go to somewhere, like you can go to Thailand and eat authentic Thai food in Thailand, it's like, oh man.
Oh, yeah. No.
There's something special about it.
It's great when you've got friends who have that same appreciation that, while you're eating lunch, you're talking about dinner.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's, that's how excited you are about food.
And it's also, it just realigns your priorities. Like, what really are you trying to get out of life? You're trying to get out of life memorable experiences with people you care about. Those are like the best moments in life.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I long for that, you know,
Yes.
because also I go in these very long working time periods and I don't get to see a lot of friends quite often, you know. And so I really try and work out and look at my schedule these days to go, I'm taking some time out here for a couple of days. I want to see my friends. I want to say hello. I want to share some time and stories and food with them. You know, so it's become a key thing to have that included in running around like a headless chicken all the time, you know.
Is that what inspired your photography? Because this book is really excellent. Your photography is great.
Thank you. It was a dear friend, Timothy White, who's a celebrity photographer, and he'd done my second and third album, and we were doing a charity single called Lucy, which was about Lucy Voden, who was the Lucy in the Sky with Diamond that I grew up with, who died from lupus. And then I became the lupus, the ambassador for the Lupus Foundation of America. And we were doing a single to raise money called Lucy, and we were doing with another great artist called James Scott Cook. And we were doing a photo shoot, and he'd sent me some pictures, and I started screwing around with his pictures. And he said to me, "And you actually don't do that with another photographer's work." You know, he said, "What the fuck are you doing with my pictures?" He said, "Where did you learn how to do this?" I said, "Well, I didn't. I just, I'm intuitively inspired to play around with stuff. You know, I'm still a big kid." So, and he said, "Well, do you have other photos? Do you actually have photos yourself that you've taken and worked on?" I said, "Well, I've got bits and bobs, but nothing." So he and I sat down and looked through all the photos I had, and I think there was maybe 1,000 at that time, which isn't much at all. I'm now over 120,000 photos. It's mind-boggling. That's why this was difficult. But so he said, "Jules, why don't you do something with this stuff?" And I said, "What am I going to do?" And he said, "Listen, you should do an exhibition. You've got some really beautiful things here." And I said, "Listen, I'll do it. I'll do it if you mentor me through the whole process," which he did. And I was probably more petrified at the first exhibition that I did, which was in New York at the old CBGB's, which turned into the Morrison Hotel Gallery, and that was in 2010, I think. And I was more petrified the 3 days leading up to that than I was ever going on stage. Well,
Really?
probably my first ever stage performance,
Why?
which I did in Dallas at a rehearsal space that was down here for the first ever tour. Again, the anxiety, it's the unknown. I don't know what, the worry of what people are going to think, because, not just being you, but John Lennon's son, being the second John, so to speak, was always an issue for me. It's feeling like you have to doubly prove yourself. And literally an hour or two before the opening as well, there was the most horrendous storm and downpour in New York, and I thought, well, that's it. Nobody's coming. But to my utter delight, I had reviews from fine art photography magazines, etc., that gave me nothing but praise, and I was shocked.
Wow.
Absolutely shocked. So I just continued doing that. I'm now over, I think, 42 exhibitions worldwide, and I just finished my biggest one in Venice at a museum over the last 3 months. And the book, in fact, I had approached other publications before, but been pretty much turned down by everybody. And then out of the blue, earlier this year, this company out of Berlin called Tenoise said, listen, do you want to do a photography book? And I said, hell yeah. And they said, why haven't you done one before? I said, because nobody gave me the opportunity. Excuse my French.
Do you think that's because you're John Lennon's son? Like, there's a burden that is very unique to you.
I certainly recognize that there's walls up, without question.
What is that like? Like, what are the walls? Like, do you think it's just they dismiss you because
something's going on? I mean, I've discussed this with Rebecca, who you met, my manager, and a few other people. You know, there's occasions where I'll be totally blanked. Like with the last album I came out with, Jude, which took in between 5 and 30 years to write and record. It was old songs and new songs that I wanted to balance the sound, and it was at a time when I'd gone through a lot of changes myself, and I had decided to finally call myself be Julian. I'd been John Charles Julian Lennon all my life, but everybody had always known me as Julian. Even mum and dad called me Julian. So I'm like, you know what? I want to be me finally. So by deed poll in 2020, I said, right, I'm going to be Julian now, and the album's going to be called Jude. And the reason I called it Jude was it was finally not only an acceptance, but actually, what's the terminology? I'm actually taking ownership, should I say, of the name Jude and what that represented for all these years to other people and to me. Right. So anyway, I that was, the album was a biggie for me. Calling the album Jude, for starters, inciting,
right,
hopefully positive things. But the weird thing was, I put this whole band together, and I wanted to, as a starter, to go on all the TV shows that I'd always ever wanted to appear on. For instance, in England, like Jules Holland, later with Jules Holland, which is the only live music show that I've watched all my life, literally. There's Graham Norton, which and I'd done their radio shows, which is really, really weird. And we got on like a house on fire, and I performed live, and that all went down well. And then it was kind of like, see you on the real show. Producers turned me down, and and same with a lot of the late night American shows. They weren't interested. And I'd done the name change. I'd been away for 10 years. I'd called the album Jude. There was a lot to talk about. And a great deal more than I'm presenting right now. Anyway, I was turned down, and that still happens to me. Which saddens me, because just when you feel like you want to open up, and answer any question you can throw at me, I've not been allowed to. That's what it's felt like, that I've not been allowed to speak my piece, whatever that is.
Well,
on whatever subject matter.
It's weird. It's like the gatekeeper aspect of it is weird, but it's also weird. Like, why not? Like, what would be the hesitance?
I don't understand.
It's the idea of the son of a great man, and there's this weird. We have a dismissal, and I'm very guilty of it myself. Yeah. The son of a great man. I always say, like, that guy's fucked. He's fucked. It's like the burden's too high. Your dad was John Lennon. Like, he's iconic.
Well, and I think with a lot of people, they don't want anybody to interfere with that. I mean, how dare the son come along and even try and be better in any way, shape, or form, or be as good as, or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah, you're immediately dismissed.
Which is why, to a certain degree, photography really appealed to me. Number one, because and the reality is I prefer it behind the camera. I don't mind being a goofball once in a while, doing in front of the camera things, but I'm not really comfortable there. But behind the camera, and traveling is what I have a foundation called the White Feather Foundation, and we try to help people all over the world. And it started. I know that you have interest in indigenous cultures,
sure.
And I don't know if you know the backstory to the White Feather Foundation at all.
I don't.
Okay, so here we go.
Okay.
I was on tour with probably my most, at least outside of America, most well-known song. It was at number 1 and top 10 in countries all over the world except for America. And it was called Saltwater. And saltwater is about environmental and humanitarian issues. And I was number one in Australia. I was doing all kinds of shows. I was doing promo and tour as well. And I found myself in Adelaide. And I got this call from the hotel management saying, excuse me, Mr. Lennon, but there's an Aboriginal tribe down here with TV crews who want to say hi. And I thought it was like an on-the-road prank. I said, yeah, sure. Why would they be coming to see me? And they called back and they said, no, this is serious. Can you come down, please? And so I think TV crews, Aboriginal tribe, what's this about? And so I kind of get dolled up a little bit because I don't know what the TV shows are or cameras are.
Right.
Yeah, I go down. And in the lobby, there's a little platform and about 30 people, half of them Indigenous, TV crews, a bunch of other stuff. And I honestly have no idea what it's about. And this woman, who was the elder of this particular tribe called the Mourning People, walked up to me and presented me with a male swan's white feather, which is about yay big, and said, can you help us? You have a voice. Can you help us? And I just kind of went, well, do I just continue being the rock and roller, or do I step up to the plate, whatever that means? And so
what specifically did they want help with?
Well, I'll tell you. Initially, I didn't know what their problems were. I imagined that it would be the same as most other Indigenous tribes around the world that have had issues, And they said, can you help us? And I said, I'll do it for the children. So I guess what I was saying is the next generation. I can try and anyway. So I that this woman was called Iris. She was the elder. She's since passed in the last year or so. But I spent 10 years making a documentary with a best friend, Kim Kindersley, who initiated this whole thing. And we made a documentary called Whale Dreamers, independent. We had no money really behind it, no sponsorship. We won about 8 international independent film awards, which was great. But the backstory to this is that Dad had said to me, and I couldn't tell you when or where, just was one of those times that we were together. He just said that, if something ever happens to me, that I'll let you know to let you know that I'm okay, or that we're all going to be okay, will be in the form of a white feather.
Whoa.
So when that woman presented me with a white feather, the goosebumps came on heavy. I get them now every time I talk about the story.
I'm getting them right now.
So, yeah, there she is. There's Iris, and there's Bunna, who's one of the other guys.
That is so crazy.
I still have that. I still have that in the original envelope that she gave it to me, and it's, I still have Iris, and there's Bunna, who's one of the other guys.
That is so crazy.
I still have that. I still have that in the original envelope that she gave it to me, and it's, it's in a very special place at home.
I mean, you can talk all about coincidences.
Oh no! Listen, that for me, I'm sorry, that was undeniable. Regardless of where my faith or spirituality or religion was, to me that was this is real. This is as real as it gets.
It's funny because people love to dismiss these things, like, oh, it's a hogwash, oh, it's just coincidence,
Yeah.
oh, it could have been a variety of different things, but the reality is, mathematically, like, what are the odds? Just what are the odds that you would be contacted by an Indigenous tribe and they would bring you the very thing that your father said he would provide you as proof?
Yeah, and I was in Australia, number one at the time, with
Right.
Saltwater, the most environmental humanitarian song I've ever written and
Right.
performed.
Right.
So I said, yeah, I'll do what I can. So we made the film, and then with the advent of course, the internet, I thought, okay, we'll put a website together to sell the film, make some, and I'd also said to my business manager, I said, if we make anything on this, I said, I want everything to go back to the Mourning People, and he said the only way that can happen is if you have a foundation. So initially the foundation was just a vehicle, just to pass money along, but I started the White Feather Foundation to have, again, a vehicle to sell the film. And then slowly but surely I would start getting these emails from people over the years, over time, saying, well, can you help us? And I'm going, well, I'm not really a foundation. I did this project and I thought that was it. Anyway, there was lots of emails, and I finally said, well, all right, this is a platform. Let me see if I can, okay, what am I interested in? What can I do? There's plenty of other charities out there. There's plenty of other people doing other things, but what can I do? What's most important to me? indigenous tribes were the first. So the Moaning people, and then, in fact, in the film itself, in Whale Dreamers, Kim, my director, friend and director, had already done a segment of a film where he grouped 80 of the elders of the world's indigenous tribes, the 80 from around the world, around a fire, and just filmed them to talk about their plight and what they had in common, and the fact that their cultures and land were being taken away from them, being destroyed, etc., etc. So that became one of the first orders of the day: protect the Moaning, protect indigenous tribes around the world, try to buy back their lands and protect their cultures and their people, and try and support them in whatever way we can, which is what we continue to do. And I was in Kenya, going to different schools and health clinics, mostly girls' schools. I set up a scholarship in my mum's name, the Cynthia Lennon Scholarship for girls, and so we send them to college and universities where they go to learn how to protect their people and their families and cultures. And so we support, we build health clinics and dormitories, and we do it because, I mean, the stories that I heard from these girls about having to walk to and from schools that took 3 to 6 hours, and they'd be exhausted by the time they got to home or to school, and that they, in order to, get ahead, they had to pass, certain exams, but they had the threat pretty much every day of being either raped or murdered, and they would literally stay in their own schools, sleep in the classrooms, and convert them to dormitories at night so that they felt protected. I mean, it was, and when they went home, they were doing 3 hours of chores every night before they could do any homework, and then go to sleep and then walk to school again. So you'd hear these incredible stories that you just realise how lucky you are. And so we try to help, again, the indigenous. We do help with health and education as far as young kids, young girls across Africa, Kenya and Ethiopia, and also my last trip was to Colombia, to South America, to visit the Koji tribe, who were these insane people that chewed the cocoa leaves. But they used to be fishermen years ago, before the Spanish arrived in the 1600s and chased them off into the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Is it coca leaves or cat?
Yeah, it's coca leaves.
Coca leaves.
Yeah, and they chew it and mix it with spit, and then
oh boy,
they're all off their heads really. But they still have this beautiful culture. And I was only there for a few days, and we were up in the mountains with them. And there's another group. There's an NGO, another group called the Amazon Conservation Team, who the White Feather Foundation worked with, and we went down there and was able to buy back some of their land, and we did a couple of ceremonies with them, which were very, very beautiful. But one of the most, probably one of the happiest moments of my life, and I've only mentioned this once or twice, was that we came back down from the mountains, and we came to the sea where we were staying in huts, and the Koji tribe came down with us. It lit a fire on the beach. Sun was just going down, and there was no phones, no computers, no nothing. And we were just sitting on the beach, and the fire's between myself and the Koji tribe, and the sun's just going down, and the waves are right in front, and it's just very beautiful. Nobody on the beach, old, beautiful, beaten up tree trunks that have washed up on the shore, and just a little haze from the water and the sand being blown. And there was a peace that I can't explain. I looked over at them, and through the fire, the flames of the fire, and we just smiled. There was no words. It was just some level of peace that had been found, just living in that moment, that present moment. And then the sun going down, and then, because there's no street lights or anything else around, you saw every star in the sky possible. And so with that transition, hanging out with one of the oldest tribes in South America, with the fire, with the sea, with the sky and the stars, I can't even describe it. It was one of the most loving and most peaceful moments of my entire life.
Wow.
The simplicity of it. It was actually the simplicity of it all, and just the human heart and the appreciation for the world that we live in. And it's like, well, that's partly why I do what I do, even with the photography. It's capturing those moments, those once-in-a-lifetime moments. And the other thing is that how I started doing photography is when I was on the road a lot, you do these real long-haul flights, to America or to Asia or wherever. And back in the day, you only had one movie on a projector. That was it. You didn't have TV screens or the iPhones or anything to watch anything,
Right.
So once the movie was done and you'd had a bit of food or whatever, that was it. Most people would go to sleep. I would always be twitching, of course. So I'd be looking out the window and staring at the clouds. And I realized that, what I was seeing was literally just moments. And they would never be again. They would be gone, fleeting. That's it. Whatever that cloud, that light, that shade, that shadow, the color, the beauty of that, the enormity of it as well was. So I started taking pictures of clouds. And I just thought that at these moments, while everybody else was asleep on the plane, I'd be sitting there looking out, either thinking about everything that was on my mind in the world, or I'd be thinking of nothing at all, and I'd just be at peace. And again, like that moment in Colombia, just absorbing everything that I found to be beautiful that was surrounded me. So clouds were my thing at first. That was my moment to either get away or think about everything. But mostly loved that kind of element of freedom and space and just, am I the only one seeing this? Everybody else is asleep.
Everyone's distracted.
Yeah, so I started taking pictures of clouds, and then I knew a few rock and rollers, so I started taking pictures of those too, and then one thing led to another because I'd go on these trips to Ethiopia with great organizations like Charity Water, and again Kenya and South America and a number of other places. I just would take a camera with me because and I have to confess, and I've said this a few times, I have the worst memory of anybody I know. Absolutely terrible. So in a way, this was taking a camera with me was to catalogue what was going on. And it was only when I got back home, I put them on the screen and I go, oh, that's quite a nice picture. Oh, that's not so bad. What if I just did this, that, and the other? And so I started making collections of my journeys, which eventually became my website and my photography. I've never done a paid gigs as such, and I've never used nothing that wasn't natural light or present light. So I've never set anything up. I've always tried to, again, get that moment, whatever it was. And then, I had the opportunity. I know I've gone in a bit of a roundabout circle, but the publishers came to me earlier this year saying, "Do you want to do a book?" And I'm thinking, well, yes. And how do I do this? And because a lot of people don't know I'm a photographer in any way, shape, or form, I thought, okay, can I make it a retrospective? Can I make it all the stuff that I'm interested in? Because often as a photographer or even a musician, you get, oh, what is your favorite thing? What do you take pictures of? What are your songs about? They're about everything.
Right.
Why do they? That's that. The idea of being pigeonholed in any way, shape, or form horrifies me.
Me too.
So this was a way for me to show my work, and it was a bit of a nightmare too, because I had decided with the onset of this exhibition I'd been offered in Venice at this museum alongside Helmut Newton, no less. Why don't I try and marry the two so I have the book come out at the same time as the exhibition? Now that meant working on the book like an absolute fruitcake madman on crack. I mean, we were doing 9 to 12 hours a day virtually because he was based in the guy who I was working with from the publishers was based in Berlin, and I was where I was. So this would be virtual, back and forth, trying to figure out what makes a photography book great. It was something else. We did it in a couple of weeks. It was insane, and the hardest job of it all was because I used to shoot anywhere between 150 and 100 pictures for a collection. I was never one of those that had like a limited edition of 4 or 10 pictures. Again, this was just a catalogue of the work of what I'd seen and the charity stuff. But then I had to, in those moments, I had to learn how to make a collection of 50 pictures, 5 pictures. I'm going, well, how the hell do I do that? How am I going to do that? So it's being able to tell the same story of 50 pictures in 5 pictures.
The problem is about the other 90 pictures.
Well, of course. And as I keep saying, they're all my babies.
Yes.
So, it's... what it makes you realize is, okay, what's the truth? What's the really, really, really important message I'm trying to get across here? What am I trying to say? What am I trying to express here? Because half the time I just feel like a messenger, really. I'm capturing something and I'm sharing it. And the reason I say that is because once I started getting into this, a lot of the earlier emails I had were from disabled people or people that didn't have money, that couldn't travel around the world. And they would say, well, you're bringing this to us. By taking these photos, you're showing us your journey and where you've been and these indigenous tribes and this and that. I'm going, that's really quite special. That's really really quite special because you're taking on another role. Because I try not to, in whatever profession I've done, whether it's documentary work or books or children's books or music, I never try and shove things down people's throats. I just present things and you take what you want from them. So the idea was to put a book together that just showed the world as I'd seen it through those journeys that I've been on. And what happened was that when we got the go-ahead for this exhibition, which was only earlier this year, I was thinking, how am I going to do that? And I decided to make that a retrospective too. But how do I then chop that many pictures down to that of this exhibition? Again, funnily enough, the book became my guideline. So what I'd learned in the editing process of putting the book together, I now looked to that and the book to see how I could present the work in a larger scale in a museum, and which was bonkers, And this all happened this year. So it's like, okay, all right, I'm going for the ride. Whether I obviously want it, but when it all hits you at once, it's quite something else. It's been a full on busy year, and there's been music involved too, and other documentary film projects which you'll probably hear about next year. So it's probably been one of my busiest years. Even though
it seems like you're enjoying yourself, though.
I'm alive. I think that's for me. That's people say, "How are you?" I'm alive. And I have always gone with things that have been presented to me organically. Anytime I've ever fought that or been pushed into situations, generally never works out.
I think for everybody, that's true.
Yeah. So I feel fortunate in that these things have come along, and I've been in the right headspace, thankfully, to go, yes, I want to do this.
When you started shooting, did you take classes in the technical aspects of photography?
I don't have a clue.
So did you? What kind of cameras are you using? How did you learn how to use them?
I didn't. You
just figured out how to focus them?
Same with music. I play by ear. Not a clue how to read or write music.
Really?
Yeah. And this, I tell you, this is one of my fears is that, and I'll come back to this, but because I'm not a practicing musician, well, I haven't been for years anyway because of all the other work that I do. So if I'm not on the road and I'm not practicing and I've got a terrible memory, I forget. And so, I've been cornered a few times and people say, come on, pick up the guitar or play the piano, give us a song. I couldn't.
Wow.
I couldn't, even if you gave me $1 million tomorrow. I couldn't do it. My memory just doesn't work that way. And so and this is why my manager and I, Rebecca, we keep having chats about going on the road. I said, listen, if we're going to do this, then this is a lot of work for me. I have to relearn how to play my own songs and my lyrics. And I kid you not.
Wow. But you also have to relearn self-taught.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you do? Like, have you done that in the past where you had to relearn?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last tour I did with the album, Everything Changes.
How do you scale it? Like, how do you get going?
You just have to get in the room.
So you just get in the room and
get in the room with the guys. The band that you put together. Generally, I'll have one or two friends in the band. And I have generally played, rhythm guitar. Or a bit of piano for a couple of songs, but I have to relearn everything. I mean, it's and then
how long
lyrics.
Does it take? How long does it take to relearn how to play?
When we were actually setting up, as I said, to do a bunch of TV shows to promote the album, and I was quite surprised about how quickly, because the band was so good. I walked into the room, they had the songs down already, and I just went, oh fuck, shit, I'm screwed. So that means again I have to step up to the plate.
Right.
And it was just a question of being in there every day, remembering, learning the chords, going over it again. And of course, when all this stuff that we were going to perform was all new material. Because when I write a song, if I've written the basics of a song in an hour or two, and it's all there, and then written the lyrics, and then produced it, recorded it, and it's done, that's the one and only, or a couple of times that I'll have ever played it. So it's almost a new song to me every time I come back to it. It's a real weird one. So for the photography, I just took along basically a really good quality automatic camera that took the shots.
Did you know what you were buying, or did you just go buy one?
No,
did someone help you?
No, I'd ask a few friends like Timothy White. I'd say, what could I use if I'm running around? And so I took their advice, and I started with a very simple camera that was autofocus and all compact, and I didn't have to change lenses. And that's one I did for a trip around the South China Seas on a boat trip. I just took this one camera in my backpack and hope for the best. And I had a show here at Leica in LA, because it was a Leica camera, which was about 50 images of the trip that I did. But I think where my strength lies in photography is weirdly not on the technical side, obviously, but capturing that moment. I tell you, the one thing about the woman that's on the cover of the book, she is now the Princess of Monaco. Charlene, originally Charlene Whitstock, and I'd met her a couple of times, and I'd met Prince Albert a couple of times, and I got this call literally the day before they were getting married from a mutual friend, saying, "Charlene loves your photography. She wants you to come and shoot the show." What? So, yeah, she wants you to come down to her where she is getting ready for the civil wedding tomorrow, and she wants you to take pictures.
Wow.
I mean, you want to talk about anxiety and crapping yourself? So, excuse me. I arrive at the hotel where she and all the maids of honour are. I'm sitting in the lobby, and I've got a backpack and one camera, and I've tried to dress myself up a little bit. I don't know what's going to happen. I had to go through several layers of security, roadblocks and all of this to get there, which was nerve-wracking to say the least. Anyway, and then the likes of Patrick de Marchelier, one of the best photographers in the world, walks in with, the suitcase trolleys, those ones at the hotel, on the big ones on wheels, with all his equipment on, 3 or 4 trolleys, and I've got a backpack, Anyway, I go upstairs. I'm placed in front of her in a room probably about similar to this size, and she's sitting there completely blanked out in front of the mirror with the hairdresser, the hairdresser's assistant, and their assistant, the makeup artist's assistant.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I'm in the book a few times. That'll be a questionnaire at one. That'll be a quiz at one point. How many times am I in the book? I don't even know myself, to be honest. But I sit next to her, and you've got all these people, 20 people in a room this size, doing things, trying to get her ready. 10 minutes before she times. That'll be a quiz to know myself, to be honest. But I sit next to her, and you've got all these people, 20 people in a room this size, doing things, trying to get her ready. 10 minutes before she's getting married, and they put me on this little poof next to her. I'm sitting next to her, and I'm saying, "Are you okay? Should I just take pictures?" She said, "Jules, I'm not sure what to do. I don't know what to do." I'm going, "What do you mean? You don't know what to do about the marriage or me taking pictures?" I can't, I couldn't.
Right.
She said, "No, Jules, it's the photos." I said, "Listen, this is historic. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to record what's going to happen to you, and exciting for me too to be a part of that as a photographer." And so I said, "Listen, I'll keep out the way. I'm a fly on the wall. I won't be anywhere." And I was thinking, how am I going to do this? How do I do this? And so I just let people get on and taking pictures. And I get a message from Vogue.com, who want a photo from me the moment she's married. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just keep snapping away at whatever I do. And I watch the civil wedding, and then I get on my bike, go home, and I start putting things up on the screen. And I'm looking at pictures going, I've got fuck all. I've got shit. I can't. This looks like crap to me. And this happens to me every time, every fucking time. And I'm looking at the pictures going, they look terrible. They really, really look blurred and this and that and badly positioned. And I'm cursing myself. And the one thing that I remember that she said to me is that, look, whatever you do, don't let any picture have me drinking or smoking in it. And I went, oh, okay. And the one thing that Vogue said to me is, we want to see her smiling. And the one picture where she was smiling, and she had champagne in her hand and she had a cigarette. I'm going, fuck's sake. So, okay, I was not a Photoshop kind of guy, but I managed to get rid of the cigarette. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I deal with the champagne shit? And then the one thing occurred to me, I thought, okay, I'll do it. I'll desaturate it, not black and white, but there'll be elements of tones. I'll make it, so you can't see that it's champagne. And I did that, and I cropped it in a certain way, and I went, that's it. Why didn't I think of this before? 1930s, 40s, 50s, Princess Grace, black and white, old school. So then I turned every picture I had black and white, desaturated version, similar to black and white, of the whole collection I had of her. And cropped it in a way that it was like 1950s magazines. It's just certain angles and a different look and a different feel.
Was she okay with the champagne being in the photo?
Well, it didn't look like champagne. It just looked like fizzy water. And because on the side there had been bottles of fizzy water and still water, so that's cool. She had to give me the okay to do that. When we decided that should be the cover of this book, I had to get her approval. I mean, I already had approval for having her pictures in a collection or a box set, but not on the front cover of a book that may do well.
Right. Have you ever been to Disneyland?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Do you know all the pictures of Walt Disney have his cigarette photoshopped out of his hand?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, in every picture you see him like this.
Is that so?
Yeah. See if you can find some of those pictures, because it's really interesting. Once you know that they photoshopped it, there's a guy that we've had as a tour there. Shout out to Philander. Awesome guy works there. And he gave us this sort of history of Walt Disney. And Walt Disney died of lung cancer.
Right.
Which you would think it would be probably a good thing to have the cigarette so people can know, that poor guy, that's what killed him. But instead, they've decided to whitewash it and Photoshop. So all of his photographs. So
that's too funny.
Look at his fingers are always in a position where he would have a cigarette. All of them.
That's so funny.
Those real moments of him having a cigarette are lost forever.
Whose idea was it to get rid of the cigarettes?
Disneyland. Disneyland did
After
not
the
want.
fact.
Yeah. I mean, let's see if there's a person. It says there. It says the action seemingly innocuous at first, but it's apparently a murky tribute to Walt Disney's smoking habits, with the company sidestepping around the reason as to why the icon pointed that way. Writes HuffPost. It's been long speculated about. The anonymous employee was informed by a lead that the strange way all of them.
That's so funny.
Those real moments of him having a cigarette are lost forever.
Whose idea was it to get rid of the cigarettes?
Disneyland. Disneyland did not want.
Fact.
Yeah. I mean, let's see if there's a person. It says there. It says the action seemingly innocuous at first, but it's apparently a murky tribute to Walt Disney's smoking habits, with the company sidestepping around the reason as to why the icon pointed that way. Writes HuffPost. It's been long speculated about. The anonymous employee was informed by a lead that the strange gesture from the cast members of Disney Park is actually based on Walt's old smoking habit. So people do that two-finger gesture to each other.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Allegedly began training employees to do the same thing. Part tribute to the great man, part rewriting history. So they tried to pretend that thing that he was doing, like Tom Hanks when he played him, he did that thing with his finger. But it's all bullshit. It was a cigarette smoker, like a constant cigarette smoker.
Oh, yeah. I was one of those.
Is there any photos of him with a cigarette?
You're talking about it in 2014.
No, that's me. That's funny. Well, that's when I found out about it. That's when Philander gave us a tour.
They stopped doing it then, right around then.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. I got you, bitch. I got them all to stop doing it. Because it's fucking stupid. The guy smoked cigarettes. Yeah, smoking cigarettes is bad for you. He died from smoking cigarettes. You should probably let people know. You're doing a disservice to the whole world.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, it's a part of history in the fact that so many people were unaware of the dangers of smoking cigarettes all day. And it's so insanely addictive. I used
to be an insane smoker.
Yeah. How'd you quit?
Cold turkey.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd be one of those guys that would wake up at 4 a.m. and light up a cigarette and then go back to sleep.
Wow.
Or I'd took about 2 or 3 packs out with me of an evening.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because I knew half of the people would nick half of my cigarettes, so I wanted to have backup.
Oh, boy.
Now, when the whole no smoking law came, Italy was one of the first.
Really?
And Ireland. Yeah, I think it was California that initiated it.
Mm-hmm. And
then Europe took it on board, and it was actually Italy and Ireland, and I was in both of those places, and it was extremely weird to go into any, especially in Italy and Ireland, in the pubs, and for it to be a smoke-free environment.
Mm.
And that was just so weird, because it was part of the norm of back in the day that you'd be in a cloud of stinky cigarette smoke.
Yeah, that was
any of those locations.
Our
everywhere.
norm at comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go home from comedy clubs every night smelling like cigarettes, always.
For sure.
The whole audience would be smoking.
And as a smoker, you don't think, you're not conscious of how other people, how you stink as well.
Right.
Which, because it was funny, when I quit cold turkey, I did it because I didn't want anybody to tell me I couldn't smoke. I was such a brat.
That's why you quit cold turkey?
I quit cold turkey because I wanted to tell myself I couldn't smoke, not for you to tell me I couldn't smoke.
How rough was it?
That's what brought me down into a depression for a couple of years. Oh yeah, because I started smoking at the age of probably 11 or 12 as part of my local gang, that I used to be in as a kid. That's what you did. You nicked ciggies from your parents and you'd found the back of the school, and that was part of the initiation, the part of growing up. So, and I loved it because for me, when I became noticed as a musician, I again with my anxiety, and I was a very shy kid, very very shy kid. Still can be at times, depending on how I feel that day. But I would, the cigarette for me was my best friend. I'd go to a bar and I'd be the, not the cool guy at the bar, but certainly that would be my way of not having to interact with people.
Right.
I'd just sit there and, be a rocker and smoke my ciggy and down my Jack Daniels. And it's like, leave me the fuck alone,
Right.
Unless I, wanted to talk. So that was the groove back then. And then when I gave that up, instantly, it was like, oh, shit, what do I do? How do I fill in that void? Well, I actually had to speak to people.
Is that what caused the depression?
Well, no. It was actually, I feel it was definitely a chemical thing because, again, I was smoking a couple of packs a day. I loved smoking. And the weird thing...
Did you consider going back just to alleviate the depression?
I was actually, a business manager friend of mine at the time saw me at one stage and said, Jules, pick up a fucking cigarette, please. Seriously. And he said, you're gonna die the way you're going.
Wow!
So,
pick up a cigarette because you're gonna die without it.
Yeah, that was literally his sentiment.
Wow!
And it was a few years where it was very, very dark, and it was the cigarettes. No
That's
question
crazy.
about it.
Did you try patches or gum?
I did all of that stuff.
Did it help?
Not really. I loved that deep inhale, and
it's the delivery method.
Yeah,
it's different than anything else.
And the thing was, I would still challenge most good singing friends of mine that I could hold my breath or do lengths in a swimming pool underwater and hold my breath better than anybody else, which I was able to. And it's because I was such a deep, deep smoker. When I inhaled, I really, really inhaled.
So it was like lung exercises?
Literally. And I remember going for my certain... Yeah, seriously, I consider myself a shallow breather now in comparison, except for when I go on these kind of power walks,
Wow.
trying to get it all in anymore. But yeah, I bought a little apparatus, which I still haven't. I've been procrastinating about it, but it's an exerciser that's like
I have one of those.
Yeah, to expand.
O2 trainer.
Yeah, there you go. So I haven't done
you
it
put
yet.
like little lenses on it or little.
Well, you just change
wheels.
the inhalation volume.
It's less
and do it back and
less of
forth.
an
And so
opening.
you just train to.
My friend Boss Rutan created one.
Very good. I mean, I know that they work. I just haven't gotten around to it. But that's,
just breathing exercises alone are great.
Yeah,
you can achieve some very bizarre altered states of consciousness through breathing exercises.
Well, when I was, the COVID experience was very, very different for very many people. And where I was in Monaco in France, you weren't allowed to leave your house without written paperwork to the police that you were going out for 1 hour, and you could only go within 1 kilometer unless you were going to get groceries, where you could only go out for a limited amount of time. If you didn't have the paperwork with you, you'd be fined. And so I started using quite a few apps to calm myself and take on a deep breath and a deep focus, because I felt trapped, especially as someone who loved walking, who loved biking, who loved exploring, all of that stuff, and I couldn't move. And here's the really annoying thing, was that where I was quite close to the sea, a couple of 100 yards away. But as I said, I could only be in a 1 kilometer circle from where I was, but that half of that was in the sea, and so I could walk left and right to try and get 5K in, back and forth, at least 5K to try and get a good walk in. But you weren't allowed on the beach, which was to sit there and contemplate and breathe and just, try and relax.
One of the healthiest things you can do.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to do that.
Everyone lost their fucking mind. And it was really strange. In California, they were arresting people. The Coast Guard was arresting people for surfing. Like,
I know. It's the most insane. I remember going on my first power walk along a peninsula that's about 15 minutes out of Monaco, and it's somewhere I go every once in a while, and it was a really quite blustery day, and it's right along the coastline, rocks, high winds, the whole thing, and I'm power walking along thinking, I'm finally free, good. Anyway, so along the path ahead of me, about a quarter of a mile, I see a number of bobbing heads. So okay, and I wasn't wearing a mask. You had to wear a mask even when you're out power walking on your own.
Because of science.
Of course, genius. Well, let's not get into that. But so over the ridge they come, and I noticed that one of the person at the front is wearing a police hat.
Oh, great.
And so, oh shit. So I'm trying to scramble putting my mask on, and he's going for a run with a bunch of trainees, about eight other people from the police force. They're all gunned up and truncheoned and everything else. And the guy's going off on me in French saying, wear your fucking mask, you should. And I'm going, and he says to me, I understand a little bit, a good amount of French, and I can speak a little bit, but he said, who are you with? And I'm looking around. There's nobody for half a mile anywhere near me, and he's asking me, who am I with? And I'm thinking, what's that about? This is the weirdest scenario. I'm in the middle of nowhere on a rocky peninsula, and he's asking me who I'm with, and there's nobody. And, to put my mask back on, otherwise I'd be in trouble. And it was just the most surreal, peculiar circumstance to be,
Well, you could have never imagined it before the pandemic. You could have never imagined a scenario where people would be that illogical. Wearing a mask outside, illogical.
Yeah.
Not being able to go to the beach, illogical.
I still love the fact that you see people sitting on their own in cars today wearing a mask.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you go to Los Angeles, my friend just went to a party, and he sent me a photograph. He's like, I'm at a Hollywood party. Everyone's wearing a fucking mask. These people are in a cult. Like, it's first of all, if you haven't read the 500-page synopsis on what all went wrong with COVID, everyone should read it. Just understand that the whole 6 feet distance, all that stuff is all made up. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
But masks don't work.
Yeah.
They don't work unless you have like a face-fitting mask, and even that, you're getting oxygen in the particle, like viral particles in the oxygen are smaller than vape particles.
Right.
Like if you vape with one of those things on, then put it out, or you take a big deep breath, put the mask on, the vape will come right through the fucking mask.
Right.
So will the virus.
Right.
Like this is not real. You're pretending, and it's forced compliance, illogical forced compliance, which was very disturbing. It was very disturbing for me to see how many people were reinforcing that too. How many people were yelling at other people. It gave people a wonderful opportunity to be assholes, where they could yell at people for not having a mask on. But outside?
Yeah.
Like, really?
No, the logic
It was out the window. But it was also really fascinating to watch human nature. The human nature of, first of all, that people really do enjoy controlling people.
Oh,
They
yeah.
really do enjoy telling people what the rules are and punishing people who disobey the rules,
yes.
even if they don't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then also watching people comply, knowing it's illogical, and being upset at everyone that points out that it's illogical. That doesn't make any sense. Like, you're the enemy because you're not going along with it. You're making it harder for us. We have to get through this. Like, is this real?
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah. No. Stay away from everybody. That's the only solution.
Or go to a place. Well, I came here. Well, they didn't embrace any of that. Like, I was in Los Angeles, which is like the most compliant place. Everybody was all in on the public narrative that was being expressed in the mainstream media, all in on, everybody who denies it is an anti-science person, and you're anti-this and anti-that, and you just get that vaccine and just get on board with this beautiful little thing we're going to do. We're going to get through this together as long as everyone complies. And if you don't comply, and if your neighbors aren't complying, here's a number you can call. People start ratting out their neighbors.
Nasty.
It was a program that the mayor of Los Angeles ran. Like, normally snitches get stitches, but this way snitches get rewards. Like, they were giving them money, giving people money to rat out their neighbors for having parties.
Yeah, it's beyond messed up.
Oh,
No question about
so
it.
strange. And it doesn't seem real. Like, my friend
And
Hassan.
people are eager as well to join that club.
Eager. So happy they're part of it. My friend Hassan found a pair of pants that he was in his apartment, and he pulled out a mask out of the pocket. It's like, fuck, when was the last time I wore these?
Yeah.
There's a mask. And when you see a mask, like, and you realize, like, I had a mask that was in my truck that was in like one of the back little compartments on the side. Just happened to be sitting there, and I was cleaning the truck out. I'm like, look at this fucking stupid thing. Like, this was just 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
You had to have these things if you want to get on a plane.
Seems like a bad dream.
It does. It's like Disney and the fucking the cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like, are they going to Photoshop out all these people's masks?
It's all
in
a
the
bit
future?
surreal. I mean,
So strange.
it really is. It's all a bit odd.
Well, hopefully
I still don't get it. I don't get any of it.
You shouldn't. Hopefully these viruses that
No,
they just
especially those.
released don't wind up becoming the next one. I used to think there's no way that people would want that to happen. I'm not so sure anymore.
No.
After this last go around, I'm like, boy, there might be like sinister factors at work here that I don't. I'm not
without
unwilling.
question.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that.
And I was unwilling to ever think that way before. I was like, come on, that's stupid. No one's that evil.
Oh, yeah.
No one would do that just for profit.
Oh.
And now I'm like, I don't know.
Of course they are.
They probably would.
Oh, they would.
Yeah.
They would. No question.
So strange. So strange. And then, that, I think, the frustration of the overcomplicated, over-regulated, over-controlled world is probably what accentuates the experience of you being in South America with fire, looking at the stars.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a purity to that, especially no phones, no computer, no screens, no nothing, just
Yeah.
human beings
I loved
enjoying
it, yeah.
an experience on the planet.
It's funny because I'm in the process of moving. I mean, I still have my base in Monaco, but the little place I had outside, I'm a lot of my later teenage years were mum remarried a couple of times, but we were in North Wales. I don't know if you're familiar with North Wales or Wales in general.
No.
It's mountains, you know,
Oh,
sheep
okay.
and mountains, and we lived in farmland, and I used to work on a farm too. So I loved, and that's where I actually learned how to ride a motorbike, you know, on farmland and through rivers and enduros and stuff like that. And so I've always loved that element of countryside. I always like the excitement of a city and the people and the energy, but there's also that other side of peace and quiet and bird song and
Balance.
running water. Yeah. So
The key is like a little bit of New York City, a little bit of mountains.
Yeah.
That's the key to life.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of I've just and I hate this terminology, forever home, but I certainly think it's a place that I'll be for a while.
Do you hate the terminology of home?
No, the forever.
Oh.
This is going to be my forever home.
Oh,
It just,
yeah.
you know, it's so
Yeah. I like moving. I really enjoyed moving here. I like getting up and just being in a new place.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the brain.
I think I'd been at the same place for over 26 years through some very good things, but some pretty dark moments as well, whether that's relationships or friendships and things like that. And I finally decided a few years ago I need a change.
Where are you going?
I'm very close by. I mean, I'm literally 15 minutes away, but it's just a different environment. It's up in the
Oh.
mountains.
Okay.
Surrounded by, you know, beautiful old oak trees and walking paths. And I mean, I know I sound like I'm turning old all of a sudden.
No, you sound like someone who appreciates beautiful things.
I just want, the funny thing is when I went to see this place for the first time, my shoulders just dropped.
Right.
And it was, I don't want to leave here.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world seemed very alien after walking onto this property. I just went, okay, a couple of acres of land surrounded by beautiful old trees and peace and quiet. And
I have thoughts on that. I think that nature is a vitamin that we don't know we need.
absolutely,
And then-
no question about it.
Yeah, you get it, and then you're filled up, and you're like, oh, this is what I was missing.
I mean, that also the whole, tree hugging, earthing thing.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
real.
I believe absolutely 100%.
It's real. It's real. You
It's-
feel better.
I mean, scientifically proven that it.
Yeah, we have a connection to Earth that's been muted by our shoes.
Correct. This
Yeah.
is very, very true.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to think that way, but it's
You know,
absolutely correct.
You can. I have done this too. That you can get earthing sheets
Yeah,
that you can
I've
sleep
heard of
on.
those. Yeah.
I don't know. I sleep on one. I don't know if
Yeah.
it works or not.
It probably does something.
But what? That's the.
I don't know. Just get outside.
yeah.
I think get outside's the move, and if you can get outside
is.
barefoot, it's even better.
This is very, very true.
The other day, I was playing with my dog in the backyard, and I was throwing the ball for him, and he just decided. Sometimes he's kind of lazy. Sometimes he just decides to lay down, so I just sat down with him, and it was just this amazing moment of him just wagging his tail, me petting him, and just sitting in the yard, just trees and birds, and just
That's
it's
it.
beautiful.
That's
It
it.
was a beautiful, peaceful moment that I just experienced with my dog.
That's
Just
it.
Two of us chilling.
That's it.
Yeah.
Really, really.
It was a beautiful moment. I was thinking in that time, like, this is so simple. It's just a simple, beautiful moment. And, if you try to explain it to people, most people are probably not going to get it. Okay, yeah, you and your dog, you love your dog. Like, no, it's not it.
No.
It's like, it was just life. It was just like this moment of life, just recognizing, and also not thinking about anything else, which is also beautiful. Not thinking about Gaza,
Yeah,
not
it's
thinking
that
about
little
Ukraine.
moment. It's about that little moment of
Yeah.
appreciation here and now. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, and
just-
how
yeah.
that can be beyond beneficial to you on.
But then,
a
like, even
number of levels.
explaining that, unfortunately, has been co-opted by the term mindfulness, which is so often used by grifters and
Yes.
like fake gurus and dorks, and just it's one of those words that you say it, and you're like, ugh, mindfulness.
Yeah.
Ugh. I hate saying it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm a spiritual person. Oh, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I can't take it. It's
Yeah,
like
I get it.
But those terms are valuable. It's like the term God. It's like it's a valuable term. Love is a valuable term.
Yes.
But so often they just get ruined just by insincerity or just by people who use it as a way to define themselves.
for sure.
in a positive way.
Hijacked. They've been hijacked.
Hijacked. Yeah, that's it.
Which is very sad actually, because it just,
Yeah, we can take it back. We
probably.
can take it back from those hijackers. Fuck them.
I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, there's. Do you know who Alex Gray is?
No.
Alex Gray is a visionary artist. He does a lot of like very, very intricate psychedelic pieces that are like iconic. He's very famous in like the psychedelic world. His stuff is
Oh,
really,
you know
really
what?
beautiful.
I've seen.
I'm sure you
yeah.
have. He's
Okay.
very, very famous.
Oh yeah. No. This
But
is,
we were talking about this, and he said that he took the term God back. Because he's like, I think the term God has been co-opted by this idea of these totalitarian religions that impose very strict rules and dogma on people. And he's like, I don't think we should stop using that word just because of that. I think we can kind of take that word back.
it would be good to.
Yeah. Well, I
for
think
sure.
he kind of has. He actually has a church. He has
Really now?
Yeah. And it's like he had to go through a whole thing to acquire, tax exempt status. But his church is this insane building that is all 3D printed with his type of psychedelic artwork. So it looks like some insane, like magical spiritual retreat that you would find somewhere. Like, see if we can find. It's called the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors.
Where
It's in
is this?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Really?
So it's not that far from the city. You can get there fairly quickly. And it's, a completely different world. And he's got this church up there that's filled with his insane artwork. But this church itself is a piece of artwork, like the outside of it, the way, he has a lot of these images of these faces that are like multiple sides of faces all connected together. And this is like this.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this is the outside of his building. It's really incredible. That's the building.
Whoa.
Isn't that amazing? So the building is very, very
That's-
much like his type of tryptamine-inspired art, where you have all these third eyes, like in a fractal form. There's this geometric pattern on the roof, and everything is like that. It's really amazing, phenomenal. And
So
he's been working on it forever.
What is he professing anything?
I don't know
such?
what his
Is there an
showing
order
that, Jimmy?
as such? I mean,
That's Alex when he was very young.
yeah.
But he's been, in the sort of psychedelic space and psychedelic art space forever. And he had this incredible place in New York City. And then he decided to do this whole church. Just click it right there and just play it out.
I don't really know what the video is.
Okay.
It's 20 minutes long.
I see. So a lot of his. So that's his wife.
Is this derived from?
Yeah.
Acid and magic mushrooms.
It says it
and-
right there. It comes out of the psychedelic experience.
Okay.
Yeah. He's been a long time proponent of psychedelics. Just a very, very interesting guy. And his artwork is just incredible. Like really, but probably the most accurate encapsulation of these experiences in an artistic form. Really wild stuff. And again, this is, he's the way he's got it set up now. He's in the woods. So he's in this beautiful, rural area. And then he's got this incredible chapel that's up there. So it's pretty fucking cool.
Well, I'm certainly a believer in other realms that we don't see on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I've had a few experiences that would, whether that's a dream within a dream or whether it's reality, I don't actually know.
Well, one of the things that experiences
Is this
but where you have all these third eyes, in a fractal fight, people connect them to the multiverse. So I don't fuck this up. But the idea is that they're pulling answers from different universes simultaneously. They don't even completely understand how this is working. But the amount of power in computing is incomprehensible. Yeah. You're only looking at it, and there's numbers, you can write all those numbers out, but your brain's not capable of grasping really what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's probably the biggest breakthrough technologically in human history by a long stretch. And it's all happening without most people even being aware of what the implications are. So see if you can Google an explanation of how quantum computers work. Was it Mark Andreessen that was explaining to us that it's pulling from different universes?
No, that
Who was that?
being talked about in the wording of the Willow description.
Right.
But I also, just to add, when I was reading about this, they said that these benchmark numbers are coming off of Google's own data. They're the ones that set the scale of what some of the quantum.
Are you skeptical? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just
You call bullshit on Google?
No, not at all. Not
I
at
feel
all.
like
Not
he
at all.
is.
No. I'm
feel
just
like
a grain
you
of salt. Just to say that, I think they use tillions is the number or something like that.
septillion.
That no one even can grasp that.
Yeah.
That's just based, but that's a number based off of their formula too.
Right.
That's all.
Right. What is the definition of how it works? The way it pulls from multiple universes.
I think I'm trying to find it, but I think the understanding I got from it was it's just too powerful to get from our universe alone. You have to have more than one, and I don't that's just.
What does that
But
mean?
I
how
don't
do
know.
they even
Exactly.
get
What
to
does that
that
mean? Right.
understanding?
What is that thing that they have? And if you ever seen the chip itself is very small.
Yeah.
It's like the size of a saltine cracker.
Yeah.
And then this entire mechanism around it is just the insane amount of cooling. Okay. Google's quantum AI founder said the performance gains lend credence to the idea that we live in a multiverse. The idea is that Willow might be communicating with parallel universes to finish calculations faster.
What the fuck?
Like, what does that mean? The announcement led Google's already high stock price to surge, which isn't that shocking, but perhaps most surprisingly for us lay people that Google's quantum AI founder and lead, Harmut Nevin, said that the chip's performance lends credence to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse. And then it says, excuse me? This obviously has caused a bit of a stir and it isn't exactly clear on how he made that leap. It sounds a bit like something out of a sci-fi movie, and I'm definitely not going to pretend I'm an expert, but it's worth pointing out that Google is very much still in the theoretical research phase of this journey. This is very weird stuff. An evolving scientific field that even people working on it don't fully understand. What? Okay, here's what is a quantum computer. Let's explain this.
Yeah.
The computer we use every day and have been iterating on for the past several decades are what is known as a classical computer. Essentially, a classical computer utilizes binary as its language of choice. A bit in the smallest unit of data that a computer can store and process is like a light switch. Each bit can only be in a single state at a time, on or off, which is represented by 0 or 1. Computers track data based on the language of bits. Literally anything our computers do is based on a network of on-off switches sending a particular signal. A quantum computer is a bit different. If you're familiar with the concept of superposition or Schrodinger's cat, this won't be too far of a stretch, but a quantum bit or qubit is capable of representing the potential of multiple states at once. Rather than only recording a 1 or a 0, it records both because it can be both. This allows a chip like Willow, which has 105 qubits, to perform incredibly complicated analytics in a fraction of the time a classical computer could. And how does it work? So let's boil it down to a very small example. If you have 2 bits which can return a value of 1 or 0, there are 4 potential states that it can be recorded: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 0. If each of these states takes 1 second to record, it'd take a classical computer 4 seconds to record every possible permutation. A quantum computer made up of 2 qubits, however, would be able to send to record the potential of each qubit at once, meaning it can record all 4 possible states in 1 second. The real power here is achieved when you add a much higher number of qubits together and try to record every possible state. Once again, something that would take a classical computer far longer could be achieved quickly because a quantum computer can record a number of potential states at once rather than one at a time. Okay, we basically don't know what the fuck we're saying here. This is just too weird. Okay, so this is what it is. One of the world's most advanced classical computers. Okay, here it is with this problem. So AI's founder and lead, Hartmut Nevin, said that the new chip had performed a purposefully complicated exercise called a random circuit sampling benchmark in 5 minutes. One of the world's most advanced classical supercomputers, on the other hand, it would take 10 and then 3 zeros, 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 3 zeros. Years to perform the same exercise. That's 10 septillion years, which exceeds known timescales in physics and vastly exceeds the age of the universe. So it can do more time than vastly exceeds the entire age of the universe, and it can do it in 5 minutes. And the reason it can achieve such a monumental improvement in calculating capacity is because Willow is made up of 105 qubits and can track the potential of each of those at once, allowing it to record potential data much faster and come to the right answer sooner. So, like, what is happening?
That's too much information.
What do you mean?
I get it, but I don't get it.
What I don't get, how does that prove the multiverse or provide evidence that the multiverse is real? Like, and that it's getting it from parallel universes? Like, what are we even saying here?
It couldn't come up with those answers within the allotted time span. That's...
Yeah. What?
Mother of heaven.
I can't even explain. I mean, funnily enough, my brother's into all of this stuff. Sean, he's
in simpler language.
He would probably be able to explain it to you, Sean.
Probably.
He's like,
well, he would give it a shot.
He would, certainly.
I think he was the one that was probably explaining it to us. In simpler language, Willow is doing one calculation while an unknown number of Willows in other universes parallel to our own are doing their own calculations, and they are sharing that data to avoid needing to individually do every possible calculation to finish the equation. What the fuck does that mean? How are they sharing data between universes? I don't know. Ask Nevin. Remember, this is all theoretical and doesn't prove anything, but Nevin is saying that the fact that the chip can outperform our best supercomputers by such a wide margin means that it might have broken Newton's theory of physics. Yo, what does it say under that, Jamie?
What does this mean for me?
Keep that going. Put that back on. Scroll up a little bit.
Right here.
Okay, this is what I want to look at. At this point, it's an exciting look at what computing might take one day, but it isn't something you're going to see in your next Pixel phone. Quantum chips need to be isolated in incredibly specific chambers. Yeah, this is the thing. It has to be cool to a point where it's colder than outer space, sealed away from any possible signals such as microwaves, radiation, radio signals, etc., for fear of that noise leading to potential mistakes, and have specific signals delivered by purpose-built wires. Who figured this out? Where are those eggheads? Jesus
How did
Christ.
they even come up with that, if that has to be the case? I don't...
How did they figure out that you have to do that? All of it.
That's just brain damage.
That's one of the most humbling things that I've found about doing this podcast is realizing how genuinely dumb we are in comparison to the amount of information that's available.
No question.
And dumb, and I'm saying is like not just uninformed, but incapable, even if given the information, of grasping exactly what these apex minds are thinking and working on right now, along with, at the same time, people just living in Ravello, just having an espresso and a cigarette and getting a slice of pizza.
Maybe they realize and they just say, fuck it.
Yeah. But it seems like the human race desires all things. The human race desires people like yourself who enjoy photography and travel and this beautiful experience of life. But it also sort of requires people to be at this bizarre cutting edge of science where it seems to be violating the known laws of physics. Like all those things.
It hurts my brain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd love to know more.
Well, just think about what we're doing right now. Just think about what we're doing.
I still don't get how a TV works, right, or the radio. I'm still not.
How does this work?
I'm still back there.
What makes this louder? What makes the microphone carry our voice? How is this being encoded into like a form that's going to be instantaneously delivered to millions of people?
No,
so millions of people are hearing this right now. Like as it gets to them, not right now, but once it gets released, the millions of people that are hearing this are getting it through the sky on their phone.
I resign. I truly resign on that level. I can't. It doesn't.
No, I can't either. But it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. It's an amazing time to be alive.
I'm fascinated by it every day, and that's why with subjects that are happening with AI right now, I find it massively intriguing because there is an element to that may allow me to understand a great deal more, before it's too late.
I think we're the last of the regular people.
It's quite possible.
I think this experience that we're having, this experience that you're having, like on a motorcycle with no signal, just driving through the countryside, like just being alive. I think we're the last of those people. I think what's
even
next,
that sounds like a dream, though.
I know.
I mean, just the whole concept of that is dreamworthy. I mean, I have a number of theories on who we are and where we came from, and
what are your theories?
UFOs.
What do you think?
Well, to some degree, I'd always felt, even as a young kid, that the UFOs were us coming back for history lessons, basically, and that the vehicles were driven by our minds anyway. But I mean, I've seen, as Dad had also seen a UFO. I've clearly seen a UFO.
What'd you say?
I was actually. Here's the weird thing. I was actually on my way to, I think, visit Dad in New York. I think it was New York, which is where he'd seen one on the Upper East Side, in an apartment that I visited. I went to see him at. He's standing on the roof of this apartment where he was living at the time, and it's on film. He clearly says this thing came along. I can tell you exactly what it looked like. Went up the Hudson, went under the bridge, and then zapped off. My experience, I've had two experiences, but the most profound was, funnily enough, was one of those flights on good old TWA, and I was in the front part of the plane, and had been given, because I was quite young, maybe anywhere between 8 and 10. I don't know, 11 maybe. And I was going to see Dad for one of the first times in the US. And the guy that was escorting me over gave me one of those, first time I'd ever seen them, one of those books that had blank pages. I thought, wow, those are weird. Quite unusual. I'd never seen them over in England before, just these hardback, black covered books with nothing inside. So I had one of those in the colouring set, so I was, I guess, relatively young. Everybody had watched the movie, everybody had gone to sleep. I was staring out the bloody window as I normally do. And I was in front of the wing on the right-hand side. And I'm just staring out at the stars, literally. And I kid you not, all of a sudden I see your archetypal UFO with the lights around, light on top. It was silver, or, however, a reflective metal, with white lights all the way, pulsating white lights all the way around. It stayed there. I can't tell you how long.
How far away from the plane was it?
It was right there. It was 50 feet.
50 feet from the wing of the plane?
Yeah. In front of the wing of the plane.
Did anybody else notice it?
Nobody else was there. Everybody else was asleep. There was no stewardesses. Nobody was around.
What about the pilots?
That I don't know. All I know is what I saw.
God, I would want to ask them.
I guess I was kind of freaked out, or just okay with it. I can't even.
How old were you at the time?
8, 9, 10, 11, something like that.
And how big do you think it was?
I would say it seemed about the radius would be about the width of this room.
Wow.
But what happened was, so I watched it for a few seconds, but I knew we were going along at somewhere in between 300 and 500 miles an hour. I think the big old 747s used to reach that kind of speed. And it just started doing this, going up at the same speed. And I'm watching it through the window going up and over, and there was nobody in the speed. It just started doing this, going up at the same speed. And I'm watching it through the window going up and over, and there was nobody in the seats on the other side. And so I ran to the other side and was at the window like this. And I was at a seat or two in front of where I actually was on here. And it came down the other side. This is on my mother's life. It came down on the other side and sort of pitched itself there for a few seconds. Proceeded to move forward, what looked like relatively quite slow, and then literally just went and disappeared forward, and that was there. And that was at sunrise, literally just turning to sunrise, because the book I had, I drew the whole thing and the light and what it looked like.
Do you still have those drawings?
Fuck, no.
Damn.
Tell me about it. I don't know what happened to that, but as clear as day. As clear as day. On my life, my mother's life,
Did you, and this is going to sound crazy, did you have a sense that was for you? That you weren't just seeing something, but that maybe that was for you?
I could have taken that angle.
Like,
well, I mean, there's been moments in my life, certainly, that I felt things have happened at a particular time for me to notice things, that it was related to my life experience. I mean, half of the things I couldn't tell you what they were, but I mean, White Feather was an example of that.
Right.
Where for me that was undoubtedly a sign, a relevant sign that made me certainly feel that, and I'd had other experiences, that was a real connection, a real message, indirectly.
Yeah. Well, the
directly.
White Feather is so profound. It's so intensely on the nose that it's very difficult to dismiss. And I know there's a lot of like hyper rational people that would like to dismiss it. They're like, it's a coincidence. It's this.
Yeah.
My question is, are you sure? Are you sure? You know, I don't think we are. I think this concept of the divine, this concept of being something else, has existed throughout the entirety of human.
There's all kinds of
beings.
stuff going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen. I was invited to the location where I was staying, and I had this experience where I saw quite clearly. I was on my own again, of course, and I was looking out to the sea. This was down in Mexico, and I was literally just kind of drifting off, and I, without question, at least I believe so, I saw, to me, what looked like Mayan Indians, see-through, dancing around a fire. And I went, what the fuck? I mean, I really kind of got a little scared. I went, what am I seeing? How am I seeing this? Why? Anyway, it was all a bit weird. And at the breakfast table the next day, and I'd never been to this place before, I was invited down as a guest, and the hostess said, how did you sleep? Is everything all right? I said, well, I don't want to say anything, but I think I saw some see-through Mayan Indians last night. Oh, you didn't know that this was built on a Mayan Indian burial ground? I said, shut the front door. She said, that freaked me out, firstly. And then of course, she comes back into the room with a tray of artifacts, spearheads and a few other things and other tools that they use. But then she did one better. She came, a few other things and other tools that they use. But then she did one better. She goes and brings in a book that's a very, very thick book with the generations of Mayan and civilizations that have been there before. And so she says, have a look. And I'm flipping through the book, and I see the exact headdress and skirt that they were wearing and the exact colours of those headdresses. It was two-tone. It was like an earth colour and a sky blue, kind of that colour. And that's in a particular arrangement on the headdresses and on the skirts. And I said, that's them. And they said, oh yeah, that was a particular era, and that's where the property was built on. And I just went, well, okay, all right. That just, to me, I'm sorry, that just says between that and the white feather, yeah. And there's one or two other incidences. I just went, yeah, there's so much more shit that we don't
There's
know
something else
that lives and breathes and exists
Yeah.
around. And there was something written the other day also, whether it's today or yesterday, saying that, our ears and our eyes can only see so much.
Right.
Humans.
Right.
That there exists so much more that we don't have a clue about.
Right.
So I'm just going, okay, there's, if only.
Well, you have to go back to the idea that eyes didn't exist at one point in time. They were single-celled organisms.
Yeah.
Right? And so they became multi-celled organisms, and then they developed simultaneous eyesight in the ocean and on land. And then this idea that your eyes allow you to see, so therefore you're seeing everything, is kind of silly. Because before the eyes existed, there was no perception, not using light. There was no way you could see things.
Yeah.
So why would we assume that this is all that the senses could potentially interact with? That maybe we just don't have them. And maybe, this is what I've said a lot about, like psychic communication and telekinesis and all these
Okay.
different things.
Yeah.
I think they're emerging properties of human consciousness that haven't achieved like a full-blown integration yet.
Yeah.
And my real suspicion is that the biological evolution is not going to make it there in time, and that the technological evolution is going to intervene and push us, just like that UFO disappeared in space,
Yeah.
just took off. I have a feeling that the next leap of change that's going to happen with human beings is going to be technologically driven and monumental,
Yeah.
like, in a way that you won't be able to even imagine life without it. It's scary, but it's scary to not be a monkey anymore and to be in a taxi cab.
Yeah.
Let that happen.
Yeah.
It's scary to not,
Yeah.
have to walk everywhere, and then all of a sudden you're flying in a plane. All that is kind of
I would
crazy.
love to be a fly on the wall.
Oh my God, I would have flying the wall would be like ancient Egypt. I would love to see what was going on when they were making the pyramids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's my number one place.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
The next would be, what was it like when Genghis Khan was running through Asia? What was that like? Those are two. Just
Yeah. No, there's a lot of unanswered things out there, but I'm a I make the odd documentary, so I'm a documentary watcher whenever I can. Really, that's sometimes it's either Anthony Bourdain or a documentary that puts me to sleep most evenings.
Oh, wow.
After watching them, not during.
Right.
But yeah, no. So I thirst for information half the time. Whether I retain it or not's another thing. But I certainly am driven to absorb what I can.
As am I. I think that I try to, especially as I get older, to be more open-minded and less dismissive of all this bizarre stuff, like ghosts, like I think
Yeah.
essentially.
What's your take?
I think certain memories are so potent, and that the energy that's created by these moments is so potent that sometimes it lingers, and sometimes it's available, and sometimes it's not. And it depends on the state of the people, the state of consciousness that they've acquired, the level of anxiety they're currently experiencing, the level of stress, where they are in the world, the solar cycles, I think all these factors come into play, and occasionally people see whispers of the past. Or maybe it's not even that it's the past. Maybe it's those things are happening, they're just not happening in this level of the multiverse, and that all things that have ever happened are happening simultaneously all at once in this very bizarre structure that the universe is actually made out of. But we're only capable of seeing 3D space, what's currently available, what's in front of me right now, what am I going to eat for dinner? We have a very limited view of this thing that is impossible to grasp. Just like those numbers of septillion, whatever. It's impossible. You can't grasp it. I have a feeling that's everything. I think everything, like that Kung Fu movie, Everything All at Once. I think there's probably a lot to that. There's probably a lot to that. This isn't a binary experience. This probably is.
I just
a quantum
hope we get
experience.
to understand some of it.
It's kind of fun to not, and kind of fun to
Yeah,
like
but
speculate.
one day.
Yeah, but the question is, once you do know, would that be better? Would it be better, or is there something?
Do you have to know everything?
Yeah.
Just give us a hint.
Well, you might.
Give us a
The
clue.
problem is you might know everything. Well,
Well, that's what they say.
With your memory.
That's what many say.
Yeah.
That you're just remembering things.
Well, that's true too, right? That information is essentially you're pulling it out of the air. You're like ideas. You're pulling ideas out of
Correct.
the air.
It's all
and
in
then
the
people
ether.
recording
It's
them.
who gets
Yeah.
there first.
Yeah. But do you feel like that way with your music sometimes? Like that ideas just sort of come to
Sure.
you from the muse?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
No
right?
question about it.
Yeah. Even with photography?
I
Like
think
the
so
idea
too.
that, like, there's something that tells you to capture this thing that's going to resonate with people.
No question about it. I mean, one of my favorite pictures in the book is one called Hope, and it's of this little girl in Ethiopia that I was actually there to take a photograph of this person who was cutting the ribbon to open a new freshwater well. And I just heard this noise behind me, and we were under a plastic cover. It was sweltering out there. And again, because I'm shy and I don't set things up, maybe it's like a guerrilla street shot, and I just had this feeling that I needed to turn around, and I did turn around, and I just saw this young girl just kind of looking at me like, the only thing I can say is that, again, that everything's going to be all right. That for this little girl there to kind of go, it's okay. We're going to be okay. That's the impression I got from her. It was just this look. It's kind of like that Nat Geo moment,
Yeah.
And I literally span around, snapped the shot, and turned around and never looked back again. And when I did, she'd gone. She was with a group of friends. And I didn't actually know if I'd got the shot because again, my eyesight's not the best. And I certainly couldn't see it properly on the back of my camera in the middle of a bloody desert. So it was only when I got back to the hotel and put it into the computer that I went, oh. But that face to me was just like this, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, those kind of moments give me some kind of, as I called it, hope, that we'll do okay at the end of the day, But that's a very very human element and a very, warm embrace, which I choose to, kind of take on board as opposed to think that it's anything other than that, really.
I share that thought. I think we're going to be okay. But I think that there has to be the possibility that we're not going to be okay for us to appreciate that we're going to be okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's the yin and yang. It's the balance thing again. That
the horrors of the world to recognize the beauty.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think quite a few people are recognizing that too. I mean, there's obviously